I uncovered every secret from the last 30 years.
And I have given all the proofs of who was involved with Diddy. I have presented the videotape of Diddy's parties as evidence. Now no one can save Diddy and the other celebs. Jay-Z, all of them were Diddy's handlers. After watching the rest of the documentary, you'll understand.
The internet didn't just wake up shocked, it woke up electrocuted the moment 50 Cent dropped part 3 of his documentary like a tactical missile aimed directly at the music industry's most protected empire. Social media erupted instantly, turning into a global group chat of people screaming, crying, pausing, rewinding, and treating the documentary like it unlocked a cheat code to every rumor the industry tried to bury. This wasn't drama anymore, this was a digital earthquake, because within minutes viewers realized 50 wasn't playing. He walked straight into the territory people feared to whisper about, dragging both Diddy and Jay-Z into a chaotic expose filled with patterns, timelines, mysterious alliances, and off-camera connections that had fans clutching their devices like holy scripture. It felt like watching a Marvel villain reveal every plot twist at once. Except this time the stakes were real, the hints were sharp, and the power structure looked a lot darker than the public ever imagined. TikTok detectives immediately clocked in, slowing scenes frame by frame like unpaid forensic analysts. Twitter turned into a courtroom with no judge, only chaos, while YouTube investigators started preparing hour-long breakdowns explaining how Part 3 rewrote 2 decades of industry mythology. The documentary didn't just raise eyebrows, it raised alarms. But the real madness came in the last seconds. When 50 Cent first hinted that Part 3 of his documentary would be the one they wish I never dropped, fans assumed he was exaggerating. But the moment the doc premiered, it became clear he wasn't bluffing, he was detonating. The backstory behind this project had already been a storm, with 50 teasing cryptic screenshots, old interviews, and dusty industry receipts that people thought were long forgotten. But Part 3 wasn't just another chapter. It was a vault opening, a spotlight pointed directly at power structures people only whispered about in private. The origin of this whole mess stretches back decades, brewing beneath red carpets, award shows, and million-dollar photo ops that hid alliances built on favors, silence, and strategic partnerships. Rumors had always swirled about the behind-the-scenes world of hip-hop's elite, but no one expected someone bold enough or petty enough to drag those rumors onto a cinematic stage and leave it to 50 Cent, the king of long-term grudges, to treat the documentary format like a battleground instead of a creative medium. The build-up started months before release when unconfirmed leaks teased that Part 3 would explore industry networks and power ecosystems connected to both Diddy and Jay-Z. Fans didn't know what that meant, but they smelled drama immediately. Suddenly, old interviews resurfaced. Cryptic comments from years ago were reinterpreted. Tweets from 2012 were being analyzed like ancient scrolls. And the closer the drop date got, the more suspiciously quiet certain people became. Then a mysterious insider posted that Part 3 included footage the public never thought they'd see again. That single sentence sent Twitter into meltdown mode. People began theorizing. Was it unreleased concert footage? Confidential boardroom meetings? Surveillance clips? Nothing made sense, yet everything felt possible. The theories grew more wild by the hour, but 50 remained silent, smiling, trolling, and letting the hype swell like a tidal wave ready to crash. When the documentary finally premiered, the opening sequence alone shook the internet. It didn't start with gossip. It didn't start with interviews. It started with a timeline, a literal timeline mapping out the rise of 2 of hip-hop's most powerful moguls, their moments of intersection, and every unexplained industry shift that occurred around them. It didn't accuse anyone of wrongdoing, but the implication? Devastating. It was like watching puzzle pieces snap together even before the narrator spoke. The reactions were immediate and explosive. Fans spammed social media with "WHAT did I just watch?" posts, while blogs scrambled to summarize scenes that were impossible to summarize in a single screenshot. Clips spread like wildfire. YouTubers were pausing frames, zooming in, and drawing red circles around background details like they were investigating national conspiracy plots. And this was just the first 20 minutes of the documentary, the part that didn't even contain the actual revelations yet. But the real chaos began when the film dove into the early 2000s at time. Everyone remembered as glamorous, but the documentary reframed as calculated. It showed archived interviews, paparazzi clips, news articles, and interconnected decisions that suddenly looked less like coincidence and more like strategic coordination. Viewers began questioning everything they once believed about the industry. Who was helping who? Who benefited from what? And how many coincidences could pile up before they stopped looking like coincidences at all? Leaks started spreading within hours of the premiere. Anonymous users posted alleged screenshots of scenes not included in the final cut. Fans insisted 50 must have trimmed even more explosive content to avoid legal backlash. Some claimed insiders were nervous. Others said people connected to the documentary were meeting privately. None of the leaks were verified, but they added gasoline to a fire that was already burning the timeline down. What pushed attention even higher was the emotional undertone threaded through the narration. 50 didn't sound angry. He didn't sound vengeful. He sounded amused, like a man telling a story everyone already knows, but no one is brave enough to say out loud. His tone alone made the documentary feel like a confession booth hidden inside a blockbuster movie. Fans described it as petty poetry, organized chaos, and the expos we didn't know we needed. By the halfway point, people weren't watching passively. They were participating, treating the documentary like an escape room they needed to solve. Reddit threads exploded into hundreds of comments. TikTok creators stitched scenes together, theorizing about secret meetings, hidden connections, and industry alliances that suddenly made past conflicts look staged. Even casual fans began acting like investigative journalists, quoting lines and connecting dots like their Wi-Fi bill depended on it. Then came the interview segments, blurred faces, distorted voices, anonymous sources telling stories about the industry's elite circle. Nothing was confirmed. No names were named. Yet the implications shook viewers to their core. These weren't wild accusations. These were patterns. Patterns the documentary suggested had shaped careers, partnerships, and industry power maps. Whether every detail was true or exaggerated didn't matter. What mattered was how it all fit together like a puzzle no one realized was even missing pieces. But the real eruption happened when the doc hinted that some of the biggest moves in music history didn't just happen, they were orchestrated by a select network of individuals who understood influence at its highest level. Fans weren't prepared for how seamlessly the documentary connected business deals, award shows, partnerships, and public feuds into one massive unspoken ecosystem. This was no coincidence montage, it was a blueprint. Be why the final third of Part 3, the tension had built to unbearable levels. People weren't blinking. They weren't breathing. They were clutching their screens like the truth might jump out at any second. And with every minute, 50 teased more connections, more symbolism, more unexplained moments from the last 2 decades that suddenly made a lot more sense through the lens of hidden alliances. But nothing prepared anyone for the last 30 seconds. The moment that pushed the entire documentary into historic internet meltdown territory. The moment finished streaming, the internet didn't just react, it detonated in a way only a 50-cent documentary can cause. Within 10 minutes, Twitter looked like a digital riot, TikTok turned into a forensic lab, and YouTube became a conference room full of unlicensed investigative journalists speaking with the confidence of Supreme Court lawyers. If chaos had a championship league, this documentary won the trophy. Before halftime, celebrities were the first to buckle under the pressure. Some pretended not to care, posting brunch photos and gym selfies, but their comment sections were flooded with "Have you seen the doc?" Others slipped up by liking suspicious tweets, unliking them, then claiming they accidentally tapped the screen. A few artists posted vague messages like "the truth always circles back," sending fans into spirals so dramatic they needed emotional seatbelts. The industry was shaking like someone kicked the foundation of a secret society. Meanwhile, the memes came in like Zeus reunion, fists fast, petty, and unstoppable. One meme showed 50 sitting on a throne made of old beefs, sipping a drink while chaos burned behind him. Another showed Diddy and Jay-Z photoshopped into a Marvel villain duo, with 50 edited as the unhinged hero breaking into their lair holding a flash drive. People were posting scenes of WWE wrestlers jumping off ladders with captions like 50 dropping part 4 tomorrow. Every meme added gasoline to a situation that didn't need any more fuel. But the real madness started when contradictions began to pile up like a stack of unstable Jenga blocks. Industry insiders suddenly had sources, tabloids claimed they had exclusive leaks, and YouTubers swore they deciphered codes hidden in the documentary's transitions. Some said the doc exaggerated the connections. Others insisted it watered them down. One blogger claimed 50 censored multiple scenes due to legal threats, while another swore the blurred silhouette at the end was deliberately misdirecting the audience. Nobody agreed on anything, yet everyone argued like their rent depended on winning. Then came the celebrity reactions hiding behind non-reactions. Certain musicians turned off their comments completely. Several producers posted black screens with no explanation. One journalist tweeted, "Multiple phone calls tonight," and then deleted it, which obviously made the internet assume something nuclear had just occurred. Another artist posted, "People rewrite history when they scared," sparking a firestorm of speculation about who exactly was scared and why. Every platform turned into a war zone. Instagram became a comment section Olympics. Twitter was a courtroom where everyone represented themselves. TikTok was flooded with Part 3 explained in 60 seconds videos that explained absolutely nothing but still got millions of views. Even Facebook, normally a retirement home for memes, turned into a detective hub with parents and uncles drawing conspiracy diagrams like they were starring in a Netflix docuseries of their own. And yet, the most unhinged reactions came from fans who acted like they personally lived inside the power network the documentary described. People swore they always knew certain alliances were fake. Others claimed they felt it in their spirit that the timeline of events made sense. One fan posted a 27-tweet thread explaining how the music industry resembled a WWE storyline, complete with heel turns, alliances, and backstage politics. Another compared the moguls' careers to a Marvel universe where the post-credit scenes hinted at darker forces behind the scenes, but the real shockwave hit when older interviews began resurfacing clips from decades ago, suddenly sounding suspicious in hindsight. A weird laugh here, an awkward deflection there. A comment that once felt harmless now sounded loaded with hidden meaning. Fans dissected every blink, every eyebrow raise, every awkward pause as proof the documentary had been telling the truth all along. The internet became a giant microscope, magnifying every moment until it looked dramatic enough to support the narrative. Then former associates, producers, assistants, and friends of friends started chiming in on podcasts and lives. One claimed, "Y'all don't even know half of it." Another said, "If you think this is big, wait till more comes out." A third person suggested that Part 3 was the warm-up. These comments didn't confirm anything, but they fed the frenzy so effectively that fans began counting down the minutes until 50 inevitably announced Part 4. Social media analysts reported the documentary triggered one of the largest engagement spikes of the year. People weren't sleeping. They were replaying scenes, screen recording suspicious moments, and tagging celebrities like they expected them to confess publicly. It was hysteria disguised as curiosity, entertainment disguised as investigation, and chaos disguised as journalism. The world had stopped, and it wasn't restarting until everyone collectively unpacked every frame. The wildest reaction came from the conspiracy community, which spun the documentary into a storyline so dramatic it belonged on a premium cable drama. They claimed the blurred silhouette in the final seconds represented a major architect of the power network, someone whose identity would shake the culture. They created charts, flow maps, and timelines that looked like something pulled out of a political thriller. And as ridiculous as it all seemed, Their theories spread like wildfire because people needed the drama to be real. Meanwhile, discussions about motives exploded. Why did 50 choose now to release this? What was he trying to expose? Was this personal, political, strategic, or just entertainment masked as revelation? Fans debated endlessly, comparing 50 to Batman, the Joker, a whistleblower, a troll, and a historian all at once. And the more people tried to explain the documentary, the more mysterious it became. Because the documentary didn't accuse, it implied. It didn't expose, it connected. It didn't name names, it threaded patterns. And that subtlety made it far more chaotic than any direct accusation could have. The fallout from didn't just settle, it erupted into a cultural aftershock that swallowed the internet whole. Within hours, people weren't discussing scenes anymore. They were discussing consequences. The documentary had become bigger than entertainment, bigger than beef, bigger than gossip. It had morphed into a cultural moment that rewired how audiences viewed the industry's power structure. And at the center of the storm stood 50 Cent, watching the chaos from his digital throne like a man who had planned every reaction months in advance. Behind the scenes, whispers intensified. According to insiders, calls were being made at every level, crisis teams activated, lawyers summoned, PR departments scrambling to rewrite narratives before they hardened into public truth. And even though the documentary didn't directly accuse anyone of criminal acts, the implications were enough to make certain executives shift uncomfortably in their seats. It wasn't the evidence that scared them, it was what the implications led people to discover on their own. Meanwhile, fans began revisiting the careers of both Diddy and Jay-Z with a level of scrutiny never applied before. Decisions once seen as brilliance were now labeled as calculated strategy. Partnerships previously viewed as organic were now dissected as deliberate alignments. Every handshake, every co-sign, every award show moment felt suddenly coded part of a bigger system that had quietly shaped culture. While fans applauded without questioning the mechanics behind the curtain, the emotional fallout extended beyond fan communities. Industry veterans, mentors, producers, journalists, and musicians began making cryptic posts about truth surfacing, timelines converging, and stories finally aligning. Nobody used names, but everyone knew exactly what they were referencing. Even retired artists, normally silent on drama, returned to social media to post cryptic eye emojis or vague comments about chapters closing. The energy felt like the ground beneath the music world was shifting, and people didn't know whether to run or hold on. Worse, alliances began quietly fracturing. Artists who had once stood proudly beside certain moguls suddenly unfollowed accounts, deleted photos, and removed tags that tied them to old relationships. Protecting their brands, distancing themselves, or reacting to something deeper the public hadn't learned yet. Rumors spread that some were renegotiating contracts, demanding clarity, or seeking legal counsel in case future revelations became unavoidable. The tension wasn't visible on camera, it was happening in whispers behind locked doors. As viewers continued dissecting the documentary, emotional conversations surfaced, conversations about power, manipulation, industry gatekeeping, and the price artists pay for fame. Younger audiences questioned whether their favorite stars truly built their success organically or whether they were groomed and positioned by higher powers. Older fans revisited old scandals under a new lens, shocked by how different everything looked with context they never had. The documentary didn't just expose, it awakened. Then came the unexpected backlash, not from moguls, but from up-and-coming artists who accused the industry of being a controlled ecosystem where power dictated opportunity. These artists referenced the documentary repeatedly, claiming it validated everything they had whispered for years. Suddenly, Part 3 became a manifesto for a new wave of voices determined to challenge traditional structures, a cultural earthquake that threatened the very foundation the industry was built on. Meanwhile, 50 remained silent, eerily silent. He didn't celebrate. He didn't troll. He didn't tease Part 4. That silence frightened the internet more than anything, because if 50 wasn't bragging, he was planning. And if he was planning, then the final silhouette shone at the end. of Part 3 wasn't just a teaser. It was a warning. Blogs published think pieces titled, "Who is the mystery figure?" while fan detectives created elaborate boards mapping out every possible candidate. Some said it was a political figure. Others claimed it was a legendary exec. A few whispered it could be a global icon whose influence surpassed even that of the moguls already mentioned. The theories grew more bizarre and more convincing by the hour, each one adding another layer of tension to the already electrified atmosphere. But the biggest shock came when a former industry insider, someone known for rarely speaking publicly, hinted on a live stream that the silhouette wasn't a person at all. "It's a symbol," they said. "A symbol of someone who hasn't spoken yet but will." The comments spread like wildfire. What did that mean? Someone who hasn't spoken yet? Someone who would change the entire narrative when they did? The internet entered full meltdown mode. People wondered if a celebrity was preparing to break their silence. Others guessed the documentary would trigger a wave of confessions, interviews, or lawsuits. A few speculated that 50 was preparing to expose a larger system, not individuals. Suddenly, Part 3 didn't feel like an expose anymore. It felt like a doorway. As tension climaxed, a clip surfaced showing 50 during a private Q&A at a premiere event. Someone off camera asked whether Part 3 was the final chapter. 50 paused, smiled, and said, "The truth ain't finished talking." That single sentence sent the internet into irreversible hysteria. Fans screamed, blogs froze, TikTok investigators collapsed into emotional glitter. It was confirmation, not of guilt, not of innocence, but of more truth coming. Bigger truth.